All right, well, I'm going to start out with introductions while we may have a few more people wander in. Thank you for hanging out with us late in the day on a Thursday. My name is Kate Gavin. I'm Vice President and General Manager of DealerTrack Registration and Title Solutions. I've been with the Cox Automotive Company for about 18 months now. Prior to that, I have 16 years of experience in finance and the automotive space. And here with me today is Sandy Moon.
Hello, I am AVP of Client Experience for NextGear Capital. I've actually been in the automotive industry a little over 13 years, started out at an independent auction, worked out in the field with our dealers, then moved into the floor planning space. I actually stood up the title centralization efforts and organization for NextGear Capital, and I currently run not only the Titles and Records Department for NextGear, but also the Mannheim Title Shared Service Center is located in our building, as well as our Client Experience Departments, which includes our auction, dealer, and floor plan services.
All right, so you're intrigued enough to be here, so thank you again. One of my passions throughout my career has been, building effective teams and driving organizational change and efficiencies. So that's why one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here with you today is I feel like some of the solutions and challenges we're going to talk through will help you do that when you go back to your dealership. But I think we're pretty familiar with the environment today. There's a lot of challenges related to registering and titling vehicles. I know all of our dealerships are facing margin compression issues. Customer expectations have changed. Thank you, Amazon. Customers expect more to be done for them quickly, and a lot of the work to be done online, right? So it's changed how we handle the car sales process. And we know how complex registration and title work is, so I think it drives the need for tools to help us make that an easier process and unburden our days. So we're going to tell you about a few solutions that can help you with that. And talk through some typical stories of what we hear out in the field as far as how the car sales process goes, and then how that last step in the transaction, the registration and title process, can really get complicated and throw that type of deal off track. And I know, Sandy, you were telling me a story yesterday about your father and an experience he had. Do you want to share a little?
Yeah. So, great story, and it was very timely. So my dad just purchased a 2016 Mercedes SL 400, and he had to go down to Texas to get the car. Went down there, drove it, fell in love with it, was told he'd have a title in a few days, so he drove the car back to Arkansas. And about 30 days later, still hadn't received the title, started to get a little worried. He loved this car. It's his dream car. He didn't want to have to take it back, certainly not to Texas. So about 45 days later, he calls the dealership, and they tell him, well, you know what, there was a little problem with the title, but we're working on it. There was another name on the title that we didn't know about. It was actually a brother's name. And so they had to go through and get the brother's permission to get the POA to sign off on the title, and it just took a little bit longer than expected, but it really frustrated my dad, and he didn't want to return that car to the dealership. Luckily, it all worked out for him, but it was very, very a very bad experience for him.
So we could probably spend the next 45 minutes talking about issues that we've all run into with reg and titling. We're not going to do that, although feel free to share your stories at the end. We want to just talk about some of the challenges that we hear and some of the solutions that are available to help you through those. I think a lot of dealers don't think about it, but some of these solutions, if you have the right partner, can really be your secret weapon in setting you apart from the competition and making sure that there's a good experience.
So let's start really by looking at what the state of affairs is today in the industry. If we look over the past several years, the SAR has shown us that the new vehicles has really plateaued for all of our forecasts for 2019, and looks like that trend is really likely to continue. To really overcome all of the things that we keep talking about, I've heard it many, many times during this week, profit margin compression. In order to really overcome that, dealerships really need to look for ways to increase your overall operational profitability and reduce your overhead. Very important. It also helps free up your resources in your dealership so that you can make yourself a profit center and actually be able to resell those vehicles at a much faster pace. While used vehicle sales have actually taken up some of that slack these past few years, it's really important for your dealership to look at ways to maximize your profitability and really the efficiency in this area. And this is where faster title processing can really make a big difference for your dealership.
All right. So we are going to go old school. One of the challenges is when you take vehicles in on trade, it can take quite a while, 2 to 3 weeks in some cases, to get the title, and it can slow down how quickly you can turn the vehicle. So most of you, if you don't do it today, have probably had experience with the old school process, which is, get a vehicle, you pick up the phone, you call the lender, you find out what the payoff is, you write a physical check, you FedEx it to the lender usually holds it for a while until they make sure that the check clears. Then they mail you the title back. Sometimes there's problems with the title or problems with the payoff throughout that process that really extends that window. It's not efficient, and it's time consuming for the folks in your dealership that have to do this work and constantly follow up with the lender to find out, where is my title? When am I going to get it? Is it the right payoff, right? It's a lot of work. It's a waste of time and money. Taking this amount of time also introduces some risks and expenses that are pretty far-reaching for your dealership. So think about how much it costs every day that that vehicle is sitting on your lot in states where you have to have that title before you can sell it. So I think you're going to recognize some of these challenges that probably hit home. So holding cost is something that is super important, and not a lot of dealerships think about it and how to manage it appropriately. So our data shows that on average, holding costs can run $32 a day for every day that a vehicle sits on your lot, right? That can add up pretty quickly over time. And that takes into account things like finance expense, depreciation, fixed overhead related to keeping that vehicle on your lot. It's often overlooked, and it can be controlled with the right tools. So I'm going to make you do some math in the afternoon. Go to the next one here. So I think this is a pretty fair example. If you think about holding cost being $32 a day, if your dealership takes in 20 vehicles on trade a month, and if we be conservative and say that that vehicle sits waiting for a title for 15 days, across the span of a year, that could cost you $144,000. So
that's a house.
That is some markets.
Wow.
That is a house.
Wow.
It's a lot of money, and it's relatively easy to take control of that process and shorten that window to, you're not going to eliminate it, you're not going to get the title the same day, but there's a lot of steps that you can do to condense that window.
So really the long wait for a title release really makes it difficult and expensive for you to handle any payoff surprises that might come up, right? So we all realize how important it is that you know what the lien holder's name is, that you know if there's a lien holder or not, that you know what the per diems are, and how much is owed on that vehicle. And that may be something that the customer didn't think to bring with them when they come to trade in their car. So if you have an inaccurate payoff, like Kate mentioned earlier, you're FedExing checks back and forth, sometimes it's only off by a few dollars or cents, and that can be really frustrating for you especially, and time consuming. What happens if there's somebody else listed on the title that's actually a co-owner, like what happened to my dad? Nobody likes that title surprise.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the auction process, because this is where we also see a lot of bottlenecks. If you don't have a title with the vehicle, you actually have reduced chances of selling your vehicle on first pass at the auction. And we know how expensive it is if you have to hold that vehicle for another day because it didn't sell at the auction, or you have to transport it back and forth. That can really add up. And anecdotally, we've also heard that if you have the title with the vehicle when it goes to auction, it can increase the value that you get for that vehicle. So there's a number of benefits of taking those steps in advance to make sure you get that title, you get it quickly, and it's with the car before you take it to auction.
In cases where you're actually planning to retail the car that you took in on trade, title processing delays can really seriously affect how you remarket that vehicle on your lot. Also, the chance that there may be a title surprise could really affect how confidently you feel about putting that vehicle back on your lot for sale.
All right, last challenge, and then we'll give you some good news. So customer experience is really important to all of us. One of the lasting impressions of a car deal is when they walk out the door excited about their new vehicle and they want to get in the car and drive away. The last thing you want to do is give them some bad news, hand them a packet of information and say, good luck, you're off to the DMV, go register and title your vehicle, which is what happens in a lot of cases. And some DMVs are fabulous, and that might be a decent experience. Some of them not so fabulous, and that may not be how you want to send your customer on their way. So there are solutions out there that enable you to take care of that transaction for your customer, which could be a big differentiator for you and really a customer pleaser to know that they really are done with that deal and they can focus on their new purchase. All right, so best case. So the good news is that for all these challenges we've talked to, there are solutions that you can take advantage of if you have the right partner. There are steps that you can take to speed the release of the title. You can take that waiting time frame from weeks down to days. You can get visibility into those title details so there's no surprises like the second owner on the title that we talked about. There's processes so that you can set up payment to the lender to pay off that vehicle electronically through ACH. So you're no longer having to cut physical checks and pay the FedEx expense. And there's reg and title services in all 50 states. So should you choose to execute that transaction for your customer, you can do it. Whether they're buying the car in state and registering and title in state, or if they're buying in state and registering and titling it in another state across the country, you can handle all of those transactions. So how could this play out for you? Last time I'm going to make you do math today. So just another example. So $32 a day holding cost. If you reduce the time to get the title by just 10 days, and again, if you take in on average 25 trades in a month, that could save you $96,000 across the span of a year. So
that's not a house, but that's a boat.
That's a nice boat, a really nice boat, and not chump change.
Ooh.
So I think worth the while to invest in looking into the solutions and what might be able to help you.
So imagine this scene with me. So there's not very many of us here, but let's just imagine. So it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. The breeze is blowing across your very busy dealership. So far, so good, right? So a customer comes in and they are ready to trade in their 2015 Ford Fiesta on a sweet 2016 Mini Cooper you just happen to have on your lot. The customer tells you the Fiesta is only in their name and they are really, really eager to close this deal and get back home. What they failed to tell you was that there was another name on that title. It's actually their ex. Without technology that actually allows you to view the title details up front, you would either have to put the brakes on the deal and lose potential sale, or you'd have to move forward with the deal and discover this title surprise later, which really could add up to a legal ramification later on down the road, and nobody wants to get caught up in that. What happens if you actually cannot ever reach that second owner on the title and can't get that legal sign-off? Now you're really in trouble. When you have access to that system that allows you to see the images up front and you know whose names are on the title, this situation plays out very, very differently. So the breeze is still blowing, the sun is still shining, and it's still very busy at your lot. But now you know there's another person on that title, and you can actually have that discussion with the customer right then and there. Make the necessary arrangements to get the sign-off from the other legal owner so that you can finish that transaction. You maximize your profitability, and you also then mitigate your risk and actually make your legal issues go away.
So we talked about auction sales a little bit earlier. If you were to use a tool that allows you to get that title in hand before you take it to the auction, we know that you'll be able to sell that vehicle faster in most cases. So industry research shows that you'll be nearly 2 times as likely to sell on first pass with that title in hand. That's a pretty big difference and something I would take advantage of. It increases the appeal of the vehicle for bidders and decreases the risk that you may have to prepare for transport and cover those costs on more than one occasion, which, depending on what your margin's going to be on that vehicle, could eat up all of your profit pretty quickly.
So when you take a vehicle in on trade and the title release and the payoff information, it's really just one of the time-consuming tasks that really need to happen at your dealership before you can really make that vehicle marketed for a customer to purchase. Cox Automotive data actually shows that fast inventory turn really does maximize your high growth opportunities and drives your profits throughout your operation. Top performing dealerships have an average turn time of about 20 days. It's really vital to make sure that your vehicles are customer ready so that you can get it on your lot or online much faster. How fast? Well, Cox Automotive VP Dale Pollock actually says that when it takes a dealership a week or more to get a vehicle photographed, frontline, and online ready, they need to examine their efficiency challenges and look for ways to speed up the process. When you can handle the title release and payoff process really much more quickly and efficiently, it can help you join that top tier of dealers that are mastering the theory of keeping their inventory turning very fast.
With technology today that allows you to streamline the registration and title process, it also allows you to gain efficiency in your back office. So again, think about the folks that are processing these transactions every day. Depending on the size of your dealership, it can take hours a day. In some cases, you could have dedicated staff that this is all that they do is chase down payoffs and titles. So think about if you're able to automate that and streamline that process, how could you repurpose those folks to help drive additional deals or sales on your lot? I think there's a lot of valuable time and energy that they can put into other things that would really have an impact on your bottom line. And lastly, tech solutions really improve the customer experience. You know, I mentioned how that last step, that registration and title process, can really be a bear for some customers. And you want to make sure that you leave that lasting good impression. You want to send them out the door whenever you can with that license plate on their vehicle, the registration ready for them so that they don't have to deal with the DMV. So how many people, I'm just curious today, how many people today use a registration and title solution already? How's that worked out? Have you realized benefits? So if you haven't done it yet, I would definitely look into it. And I know, some folks are worried about cost, but in a lot of cases, you can actually pass those costs on. So there may not be any direct cost to your dealership, but you can still reap the benefits of having a super efficient process. So it's something worth looking into. We know that if you go above and beyond to improve the customer experience, that they are more likely to bring the vehicle back to you for service, right? Another revenue opportunity. And they're also more likely to come back and purchase from you again if it was a good experience. So you want to make sure you do everything you can to drive that sale that way. Is there a question? Sure, absolutely. So there are solutions. There's in-state registration and title solutions that allow you to connect electronically with the DMV. So you can process that entire transaction online. Or if you're not able to access one of those in-state solutions, there's also 50-state manual solutions out there where you can get all the information that you need to compile that deal to submit into the DMV and have it processed. Again, so you're taking that work away from the customer, and they will be able to get their license plate and registration card once you follow that process. And I'd be happy to share more detail with you at the end of the session. So Forrester research shows if you can even increase the CSI, or the customer satisfaction rate, by 1 point, it can result in an extra $48.50 or more in revenue per customer per year. So if you think about how that would add up across all the transactions that you process in a year, again, it's just another way to drive more to the bottom line and improve your revenue. So this could really add up for you guys.
So the need for speed, that's really what this is about. With today's razor-thin profit margins, it's more important than ever to really find ways to set up your operation so that you can maximize efficiency, speed, and transparency for the customer. I hope we've actually been able to give you a little bit of insight in helping you amp up your registration and titling operation within your dealership, and hopefully be net positive in your operations as well, maybe with some things that you might not have ever considered before. And we'd love to answer any questions that you might have or anything else that we might be able to assist you with today. Nope. Don't all raise your hands at once. We don't have that kind of time. There we go. All right. Well, yes. Uh-huh. So when you're purchasing a vehicle from a wholesaler as an independent auction or as an independent dealer, you want the title to come to you quicker because that wholesaler may take a little bit longer to get the title, for instance, to the floor plan company. And actually this titling solution does help with that. This solution allows the floor planner, like us, to be able to enter into that register or into that titling solution and help transact that much faster. Being able to get the payoff amount, being able to pay off that lender and get that title. Our experience has been typically 60 to 90 days almost to get a title sometimes, right? Through this electronic system, we actually have expedited that anywhere from 5 to 7 days. So we have cut off 90% of that time that it takes just by using this electronic system. So that has made a big impact for our clients to be able to get those titles. If we can get the title faster, you can sell the car faster. So the question is, how do you get your auction to get themselves in gear and get you the title faster? So it has been our experience as a floor plan company that you as the dealer have the best leverage to get the auction motivated to get you the title faster. A lot of auctions have a 30-day window for arbitration. Nobody wants to have to arbitrate a vehicle for no title. Most of the time you already have a customer in mind for that vehicle if you haven't already sold it, right? So your leverage with that auction is, I'm going to bring this car back if you don't get me the title within the allotted amount of time. It has been our experience that most of the time when vehicles pass by the block, especially in an auction, they're very clearly noted as being TA or not. And it's one of those risks that you take on, unfortunately, when you purchase a TA vehicle is most auctions do give those sellers 30 days to get the car. But like I said, your push is, don't make me bring this car back. Nobody wants to lose the sale. Any other questions? How about a question for Kate?
So I was just going to add, we've kept this product agnostic on purpose because we want to make sure that we focus on the content and what's going to drive efficiency for you guys. But because there's so many questions about the title expediting process, I will share the name of the product that's out there today. It is called Accelerated Title. So it may be something you want to look into, but it also may be something that you just share with your auction that you deal with on a regular basis to say, is this a tool that could help us get those vehicles faster? It may be something that you have other uses for that can help you turn those titles in a much more quick fashion.
So any projection on when we will have a national title database?
That
Wouldn't that be amazing?
is an interesting question. So that is a question that we talk about fairly frequently. Wouldn't it all be fabulous if all the DMVs could come to an agreement on how to handle titles and it was centralized and blockchains thrown out? And I'd say one day. I don't know that it's going to happen in the near future, but I think there's a lot of folks that are evaluating it and trying their best to influence the direction. But if I were a betting woman, we're in Vegas, I'd say not in the near future. That's a great point. Did everybody hear that? That in states that do offer in-state electronic registration and title, in many states there are incentives that might be offered to your dealership to take advantage of that. Because if you think about it, the DMV wants to push as many transactions online as they can so that we don't have folks waiting at the DMV. So that might be worth looking into as well. Any other questions that we can answer? All right. Well, if you think of any later after you've left, our contact information is up here. Feel free to reach out to either one of us. We'd be happy to help you out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.